Iran's supreme leader, meanwhile, is facing what may be the greatest challenge of his decades in power. As anti-government protests driven by a collapsing economy and deepening public anger spread across much of the country. The latest flashpoint also coming at Tehran's Grand Bazaar, which is the historic heart of Iran's commercial and political life, where protesters staged a sit-in to actually demand relief from the soaring prices and a rapidly falling currency. Protesters are saying security forces eventually fired tear gas to disperse the crowd as shops shut and the markets basically ground to a halt. The demonstration at the bazaar is a significant escalation. For centuries, the Grand Bazaar has been a barometer of Iranian power, and when merchants close their doors, it triggers deep economic and political distress. The unrest also coming as Iran's Rial continues that free fall, hitting a record low this week. On Tuesday, $1 bought nearly 1.5 million rials, a staggering collapse for a currency that once traded at just 70 to the dollar before the 1979 Islamic Revolution. The economic pain is expected to only get worse now. Iran's central bank has sharply cut subsidized dollar rates for importers. That means prices of everyday goods may push even higher. It will pass the burden directly on to consumers who have already seen their life savings bleed by years of sanctions and mismanagement. The protests, which started late last month, have turned deadly. Activists saying at least 36 people have been killed, with more than 2,000 detained. Demonstrators have been heard chanting against Iran's ruling regime. This is a rare and bold challenge to the core of the Islamic Republic. The president, meanwhile, has ordered an investigation into at least one incident involving the security forces. He even drew a sharp line between protest and violence. Pezeshkian has also ordered security forces not to crack down on economic protesters. However, officials said those carrying weapons, attacking police stations or military sites would be treated as rioters, not protesters.
اعتصابات سراسری و مامورایی که اومدن با معترضا برخورد کنن.
Meanwhile, this crisis can also lead beyond his control. Remember, he previously blamed his own government for the soaring economic crisis. Iran's military leaders, meanwhile, shifting blame outward. The army commander-in-chief has accused the United States and Israel of meddling in Iran's internal affairs, calling them historic enemies of the Iranian nation. He also issued a veiled threat of preemptive military action following warnings from Trump that America would respond if peaceful protesters were killed.
Today, there are no doubts about the hostility of the U.S. President and the criminal Prime Minister of Israel towards the Iranian nation. They allow themselves to meddle in this internal affair of ours. They tweet, they talk. They have been enemies throughout history, and 6 or 7 months ago, they killed and martyred over 1,000 Iranians, including commanders, soldiers, scientists, children, daughters, sons, women, and men.
Iran has weathered waves of protests, but this time, the combination of economic collapse, widespread unrest, and open defiance across major cities, posing a far more serious test for the country's leadership. For Ayatollah Khamenei, the question now is whether the state can actually contain a movement rooted not just in politics, but also in the daily struggles of the Iranians, just trying to survive. The minerals that power missiles, electric cars, satellites, the phones in your pockets, now at the center of a major new global showdown. The battleground is not a desert or a battlefield as such, but the frozen remote wilderness of Greenland. Beneath the ice, lying what many believe are vast reserves of critical minerals, and the United States and China are racing to control them. This is not just competition, it's a contest for power in the future world economy, after all. And China has long eyed Greenland's mining projects to further strengthen its dominance in rare earths. While U.S. officials warned that dependence on China could threaten national security, now U.S. President Donald Trump is willing to push farther than ever to keep Greenland out of China's orbit. Let's tell you how. The White House has confirmed that Trump is discussing multiple options. Now, the White House has confirmed that Trump is discussing multiple options, including military action to secure Greenland. The White House press secretary, in fact, saying Trump views control of the island as vital to deterring adversaries who are expanding their presence across the Arctic. And that's not even all. There may also be a deal on the table. The Wall Street Journal reporting that U.S. Secretary of State has told lawmakers Trump prefers to buy Greenland from Denmark. Rubio emphasized that the talk of force does not mean an invasion is imminent, but allies still heard danger in that message. Denmark responded sharply. Officials warned that any attempt to seize Greenland by force would halt everything. NATO cooperation, transatlantic trust, 80 years of shared security. Greenland is an autonomous territory of Denmark, remember? Greenland's government is also demanding clarity. Its foreign minister has said they have sought a meeting with Rubio throughout 2025 without success. Denmark's foreign minister saying talks could resolve what he called misunderstandings. But the gap in the trust appears to be widening. America's partners quickly backed Denmark, in fact. Leaders of Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain issued a joint statement defending Greenland's sovereignty and the inviolability of its borders. The statement noting that Denmark, including Greenland, is part of NATO and said security in the Arctic must be achieved collectively with NATO allies, including the United States, by upholding the principles of the UN Charter. And it brings us back to the main issue at hand. Why are America and China even fighting for Greenland? In case you're not aware, the island spans more than 2 million square kilometers, is a key Arctic territory perched between North America and Europe. It also controls access to that crucial gap, a strategic maritime choke point linking the Arctic to the Atlantic. And most importantly, beneath the ice of Greenland lies power. We are talking about oil, gas, especially rare earth minerals. These minerals are the backbone of modern technology and advanced weapons. How much rare earth reserve does Greenland really possess? Around 1.5 million metric tons, among the world's largest. While it currently produces virtually negligible amounts of rare earth minerals, the island holding 25 of the 34 minerals deemed critical by the European Union, many of which are considered by the EU as vital for both green technology as well as defense. China already dominating global rare earth processing, and analysts are saying Beijing has sought stakes in Greenland's resources to deepen that control. Analysts are saying this could give China leverage over U.S. supply chains that Beijing has used before in trade disputes, especially last year. And as climate change melts the Arctic ice, new shipping routes open, mining becomes easier, further intensifying this race. And for China, Greenland representing both opportunity as well as risk, by the way. According to experts, the rise of new suppliers in the US, Australia, Greenland could actually weaken China's dominance and push the prices down. At the same time, Western countries are developing green mineral standards that demand cleaner and more transparent mining, areas where China reportedly struggles. And if these standards spread, Chinese rare earth products could lose access to major markets. So gaining hold over more minerals like the ones in Greenland hence becomes all the more critical for China. And for the US, Greenland offers a path towards independence from Chinese supply chains and a chance to build a more stable, sustainable system for critical minerals. So tonight the question is not even simply over whether Trump will buy Greenland or threaten force. The bigger question is whether Greenland becomes the next flashpoint in this high-stakes US-China rivalry, where minerals beneath the ice there could shape the balance of global power itself. Meanwhile, forget for a moment that Donald Trump's violation of international law is being discussed. The capture and arrest of another sovereign leader justified as a so-called anti-narco-terror raid, all in the name of Venezuela's oil. And now Trump is floating something even more alarming, it seems. The idea of cancelling future US elections altogether. What is perhaps most disturbing here is not the statement in itself, but the fact that it no longer even shocks the world. That is truly the dystopian part, it seems. And the American president raised the idea while addressing House Republicans at their annual retreat, before quickly insisting that he was not formally calling for elections to be cancelled, by reframing his comments as an attack on Democrats rather than a proposal. Speaking at the Kennedy Center to around 70 Republican lawmakers, the US president said their policies were so bad that elections should not even be necessary, before adding that the media would brand him a dictator for even suggesting such a thing. His comments were part of a freewheeling speech that also included complaints about low approval ratings ahead of the midterm elections, also fresh musings about serving beyond the constitutionally mandated 2-term limit. Yet, in doing so, Trump is just reinforcing his own stated fear of being labeled a dictator, the very fears that his critics, by the way, have long warned about. That he views the presidency less as a democratic office, really, and more as a personal weapon of power. You see, his comments come amid weak polling. Trump's approval rating has been hovering around 40%. We've been telling you about this. Despite repeatedly dismissing unfavorable polls as rigged, Trump expressed his frustration, telling his fellow Republican lawmakers he could not understand why the public was not responding to his right policies, quote unquote. He warned that losing the midterms would basically open the door to impeachment, saying plainly, I'm quoting, "If we don't win the midterms, they will find a reason to impeach me," quote unquote. Listen to this now.
The midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached.
But just because Trump says it and really believes it does not make it lawful, of course. Federal law leaves no room for a US president to cancel or postpone congressional elections. In the United States of America, the timing of federal elections is set by the Congress. It is administered by individual states, overseen by the courts. Even during war or national emergencies, there is no legal mechanism really allowing a president to unilaterally suspend elections. And yet, this has not stopped Trump from repeatedly flirting with the idea. During his first term, he publicly suggested, delaying the 2020 election despite having no authority to do so. More recently, in an August meeting with the Ukrainian president, Trump appeared to express approval of Ukraine's suspension of elections under martial law. Comments that at the time drew laughter in the room but alarm among critics at the same time. He was quoted as saying, I'm quoting now, "So during war, you cannot have elections. So if we happen to be in a war, no more elections, that's good," quote unquote. That was the statement by Donald Trump back then. Notably, those remarks came on the 5th anniversary of the January 6th attack on the US Capitol, when a pro-Trump mob violently stormed the Congress to stop the certification of his 2020 election defeat. We all saw those visuals, a result that Trump, remember, has never accepted. During Tuesday's address, he again falsely claimed the 2020 election was rigged, repeating allegations of widespread voter fraud that by now have been rejected by the courts, by election officials from both parties, as well as members of his own former administration. Still, Trump is Trump, and his presidency has increasingly become defined by contempt for democratic norms. But will Trump cancel democracy in the US is still the question. Even in the land of the free and the home of the brave, a few are starting to question.